Alrighty, so today we're going to be doing some leather work. By this point in my life, I've done thousands of holsters and sheaths out of kydex, but I've not done too much with leather work. So we're going to learn a little bit together here. So let's get started with this beginner assemble yourself kit. So I don't have any leather shears, but I've got these carpet cutting scissors and they're pretty good, so we'll see how they work here. I'm not a big fan of how this top looks, so I'm just going to square it off a little bit just to make it look a little bit more appealing. And these scissors did okay, but I think getting maybe a roll razor would work a little better. Then I'll just go across real quick and just get rid of the harsh edges. This is one of the more satisfying parts. So I've got a new stamp I want to try out here. So I wet down this piece of leather. As you can see, that stamp looks pretty good actually. Up next, I'm going to try and put this little rivet in. It came with this rivet in the packet. So you're supposed to put it in like this and then just tap it in with a hammer. And you see that's what I do here. It'd probably work better on like a arbor press or something, but that didn't work at all. So now we're getting into the sewing portion. So I am doing a modified saddle stitch where I go one direction one way and then coming back I'll loop through. That way you get coverage on both sides. And I'm triple stitching each of the edges, so the point and then the two starts at the top, just because those will get a little bit more stress as I'm using this sheath. And as you can see, that looks pretty all right. Okay, now for my favorite part again, I'm just going to come across and bevel those edges out. When I'm making kydex holsters, I'll just buff it off on the buffing wheel, and it's a lot quicker, but oh my goodness, is it messy. That's one of the things that I'm liking about leather working here, is just lack of mess, super easy cleanup. Since the rivet crapped out on us, I'm just going to put the leather loop through the belt loop up top. So this is the knife that I'm making the sheath for. So one of my buddies does forging classes and things like that. And I've never taken any of his classes, but I've done quite a few sheaths for him. And in exchange, he built me this one. But I figure I've done so many kydex sheaths, I'll try my hand at doing a leather one here. So I'll try and tape it up here so it doesn't rust as much. Spoiler alert, the tape doesn't work at all. It still ends up getting rusty anyway. Okay, so now that I've got the whole sheath wet down, I'll just go ahead and stick the knife in, just like that. I'm trying to make sure that the spine of the knife is pushed back as far as I can because I don't want to cut through those strings. Then I'll just clamp it down here. Once I get all the clamps on there, I'll let it firm up for a couple hours before I put it in the oven. Okay, now that it's firmed up for a little bit, this is going to be my final walkthrough, just making sure I've got everything the way I want it before I harden it up. Because once I harden it up in the oven, from what I understand, is it becomes a lot harder to work with. So I've got the date stamped on there, and I'm just gonna buff the edges out. And I've seen this on a bunch of YouTube videos, so I was curious to see how well it worked. And it actually worked really well. I was pretty surprised. So while I'm working here, let's talk time frame for a minute. So it took me about a day and a half to make this leather sheath. And to put that in perspective, a kydex sheath normally takes me about 30 minutes. Alrighty, now that we've got it all molded, we'll put it in the oven to firm up. So I'm putting it in at 250 degrees for about 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, pulling it out here. Okay, now I'm going to put a little bit of stain on here. I didn't want something too harsh because I still wanted to maintain that kind of natural leather look, but I feel like this did an okay job. Okay, with the stain on there, let's put my knife in, and it's got good retention. I was pretty surprised with it. Time will tell how it compares to Kydex, but sometimes you just want something with a little bit more class. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It's still nice and stiff, nice and hard from baking in the oven. And the knife itself, you know, it got a little rusty, but that's okay. You know, it's gonna be used, so I'm fine with that. But like I said, you know, I deal mostly with Kydex, and I'm kind of getting into leather working for the first time. So this was a fun little thing for me.